Good evening. Thank you so much for making time to join us in our top stories. Tonight, there is still no respite for Njiku.
Hali ilikuwa na bandia 30 pop. Asubuhi nilikuta nikichachiwa 50 pop.
Kenyans hit by the fast changes caused by the 16% VAT on fuel as matatus raise fares by as much as 25% and fuel transporters down their tools.
Also tonight, autopsy reveals self-confessed hitman David Mwai died by hanging, but questions still linger.
We have not concluded on the manner of death, whether it was suicide or homicide.
And a village in shock.
Kaona amefumaniwa na watu wameanza kumupiga juu. Sasa mimi nilikuwa naoka ikapiti nidoroke.
3 brothers kill and cut off a man's private parts. They claim he was courting their sister without their consent.
Also tonight, IEBC cannot account for billions. Auditor General report reveals irregular procurement, fake records, double payments and unnecessary expenditure. Thank you so much for tuning in. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Flora Atieno. Let's start off with the story we've been following for you. The late David Mwai, the main suspect in the attempted assassination of former finance CEC of Garissa County, that's Idris Mukhtar, died of asphyxia caused by hanging.
Now, this is according to government pathologist Sylvester Maingi in collaboration with Grace Midigo and Peter Ndagwa, representing the Independent Medical Legal Unit IMLU.
Mwai died last Monday in the Parklands police station cells, as Charity Mwangi tells us of the autopsy that has shed virtually no light on death of the suspect.
It was a sad affair for the family and friends of David Mwai, who were flung into the public eye after the death of their kin, who lived a mysterious life and whose death was also surrounded by just as much mystery. Forensic scientists at the city mortuary were on a quest to reveal what caused the death of the self-confessed hitman who said he shot former Garissa County Finance CEC Idris Mukhtar.
We can confirm that David died from a ligature to his neck that was a nylon lining of his jacket. We also found other findings on his body that are in keeping with asphyxia or lack of oxygen.
The pathologists now say that the samples collected during the post-mortem exam may provide more answers to what exactly happened. There being no defensive wounds on the deceased's arms and torso, it is difficult to determine how the death occurred.
Our conclusion is that he died from compression to his neck from ligature. And in this profession, in these medical terms, we call that is hanging. And we have not concluded on the manner of death, whether it was suicide or homicide. That is not our duty. That is the duty of investigators.
The autopsy was done in collaboration with representatives from other interested groups in order to ensure that the findings are truthful.
IPOA was represented at the examination. IMLU was represented at the investigation. As I indicated, that we are 3 pathologists, 2 government, and 1 representing one of those bodies.
The autopsy is a matter of interest as the death of David Mwai is suspected to be a cover-up owing to his involvement in the shooting of Mukhtar, who is at the Nairobi hospital battling for his life. Pictures of involved parties meeting with mediation from key government leaders raised suspicion of a masla arrangement that would allow the families to settle the issues outside the corridor of justice. This is owing to the high profile of Garissa Governor Ali Korane, who is a key suspect in the attempted assassination, as Mukhtar had shared with his family that he had been facing threats from unknown people following his filing of a case challenging the election of the governor. Prior to their disagreement, Mukhtar worked in Korane's campaign with the hope that the incoming governor would expedite the payment of a 53 million shilling compensation for his wrongful termination alongside 2 other CECs by the former governor. They say that the dead don't tell any tales, and so the examination that took place here will inform investigations on what happened to David Mwai. This, however, may not answer the very crucial question of whether a second party was involved in his death. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
And still on the same, tonight, NTV can also reveal the close association and links that brought the parties to this unraveling saga together. Idris Mukhtar and Governor Ali Korane married into the same family, marrying first cousins who were daughters of 2 brothers. One, a former military general, and the other, a former cabinet minister.
But that's not all. Idris worked for former Garissa Governor Nadif Jama but left after they disagreed on how to manage public resources. Idris, who was recently shot, left to campaign and finance current Governor Ali Korane with the promise of a job at the county. And as Ken Mijungu now reports, there are reports of a quest for a clan settlement for the shooting of Idris Mukhtar.
When these still pictures hit the internet, the accompanying sentiment was that the sub-clan gathering had been convened to find a settlement in order to forestall a long judicial process. In the picture, a prominent current and former government officials, including Majority Leader Eden Duale. This meeting is also viewed as a move to preserve the clan's standing. The larger clan they all belong to is the Ogaden. The main suspect, Governor Ali Korane, the victim, Idris Mukhtar, Majority Leader Eden Duale, former military retired Major General Mohamud Mohammed, former Cabinet Minister Hussein Maalim, all belong to the Abduwak sub-clan and Riaya sub-clan. Governor Ali Korane is married to retired Major General Mohamud Mohammed's daughter, while Idris Mukhtar is married to Hussein Maalim's daughter. General Mohamud and Maalim are brothers. This is their second connection. The other suspect in this attempted murder is one Mohammed Buno, who is the brother of the governor. Buno is said to be the spanner boy of the governor. He is described as a ruthless fella and the governor's fixer. He is suspected to have been the one who organized the hit. He is said to have recruited one Mohammed Hussein, an ex-military serviceman who recruited the hitman David Mwai, who is now deceased. While the elders from the larger Ogaden clan have denied involvement in a Muslim meeting, it is a common practice in the clan to settle disputes, and once an appropriate settlement is reached, the matter is rested. Over the weekend, the governor spoke to the media, denying any involvement in the murder. Accompanying him were several leaders, among them former IEBC chairperson Isaac Hassan. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
And back to our top story now. The Auditor General's scrutiny has revealed wrongdoing in the procurement of both hardware and software for last year's August 8th general election and the October 26th fresh presidential poll that followed.
Now, the report details how records were falsified to cover up unnecessary expenditure on hardware for the fresh presidential poll.
How double payments were made to the Al Ghurair printing firm and how the commission inexplicably paid out hundreds of millions of shillings for software against expert advice.
Now, the amount in question totals 9.2 billion shillings, with the IEBC spending spree coming as a slap in the face of the millions of Kenyans who now have to toil that much harder to make ends meet as they shoulder a punitive tax burden.
While the internal audit that led to the interdiction of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission CEO Ezra Chiloba was indicative of a secretariat with money burning a hole in their pocket, the Auditor General's findings are much more grave. The report revealed that the Commission was imprudent with as much as 9.2 billion shillings of the taxpayers' monies. The report shows the Commission repeatedly violated procurement laws when it disregarded the recommendations of the Tender Evaluation Committee and its own IT department, going ahead to pay as much as 6 times the recommended price on software. The IEBC, for instance, paid 452 million shillings to IBM management for the maintenance of the BVR server infrastructure and security monitoring of the KIEMS kits, while it should have paid 75 million shillings. A physical verification undertaken by the auditors on June 19, 2018 reveals that no installations have been done at both primary and secondary data centers, and some of the deliverables have not been undertaken by the contractor. Africa Neurotic Systems was paid 249 million shillings to build a new converged server for a primary data center and disaster recovery site. A verification by the auditors shows that data centers were never utilized for the intended purposes. In these circumstances, the Commission paid the vendor before testing and commissioning the equipment. A contract for the provision of an Oracle database and security solution was also incredulously awarded through direct procurement to the same company in a record 3 days and at a cost of 274 million shillings and not the requisitioned 80 million shillings. As much as 127 million shillings for data bundles was also wasted, with only 605.3 GB valued at 515,269 shillings used against a purchase of 149 640.5 gigabytes of data. And the wastage doesn't stop there. Out of 1,000 Thuraya satellite data modems and SIM cards with unlimited bundles procured, only about a third were used. The Commission cannot also explain why an additional 856 million shillings was spent on KIEMS kits, power banks, protective cases and SD cards for the fresh presidential election. Or why for the repeat presidential election, the Commission ordered an extra 42,927 ballot boxes at 107 million shillings and for an inflated unit price of 2,500 compared to the 1,500 price tag for the general election. Wastage which the Auditor General has found was well within the Commission's power to avoid had they studied the data put at the disposal. Indications are that the Commission did not evaluate actual data required, which would have been the basis for determination of the actual cost. And for an election overturned on the basis of technology, the question now becomes, was the gross mismanagement of public funds the product of foolhardy or criminal intent?
Rather unsettling questions they are being raised by Dennis Okare. Be sure to get your copy of the Daily Nation tomorrow. Our sister paper has all the details you need to know about the questions being raised by the Auditor General on the missing 9.2 billion shillings, which cannot be accounted for. So get your copy tomorrow.
Definitely. Now, police in Bungoma are holding 3 brothers from Muyehe village in Kabuchai constituency for allegedly killing a man and cutting off his private parts.
Well, the trio are said to have done so following claims that the deceased was courting their sister, who is a Form 2 student. NTV's Zakias Masame with the story from Bungoma.
Nikaona amefumaniwa na watu wameanza kumupiga juu. Sasa mimi nilikuwa naoka, ikapiti nidoroke.
This unfortunate incident occurred at Muyehe village in Kabuchai constituency. 24-year-old Boniface Nyongesa had paid his girlfriend a night visit at her place before he was attacked by the 3 brothers. The deceased was hit several times with blunt objects before his assailants smashed his head on the road. Boniface was in the company of his brother, who managed to escape narrowly.
Vile wenzake walipika wakamaliza wakamuona anaanza kukufa. Ni kweli kuna shimu kidogo hivi. Walikuwa wanachota maji wakimwakilia yeye. Na tumefuata kama nyinyi mmekuja hapa tumefuatilia. Labda kuna watoto wasichana kwa hiyo boma.
Kuingia Tomu tukamuita kwa nyumba. Kumuita kwa nyumba naanza kumuuliza. Akasema tulienda na mwenzangu lakini tulikuwa na shirikisana na wasichana. Wangapi? 2. Sasa ndio kijana anaeleza. Tunasema sasa wache tufanye nini? Tupeleke huyu wapi? Kwa polisi asungumuze, aandike statement.
The worry now is that such incidences are seemingly on the rise in Bungoma. The latest incident comes just a day after a woman from Wema village in Kandui constituency allegedly killed her husband and mutilated his corpse. Zakis Masame, NTV, Bungoma.
And from that unfortunate incident, there's a bit more bad news for Kenyans here who will be forced to spend more daily as they go about their activities, with matatu owners introducing new fares that have in some cases risen by as much as 25%.
NTV's Nur Abdulaziz reports that Kenyans have only just started to feel the impact of the 16% VAT on fuel.
These are the new fares passengers from Rongai will have to contend with, at least until the president gets back from China. The burden of 16% VAT on petroleum products from this month has started being felt in the country, and especially in the transport sector.
Hapo kutoka mwanzo kwa nalipisha kutoka Nairobi to Rongai kwa nalipisha shilingi 50 off peak. Peak hour tunalipisha shilingi 80.
This increase is on the high end as compared to what has been recommended by matatu stakeholders. However, the situation is different in the coastal region.
Kwa hivi sasa, Matatu Owners Association tawi la Pwani hatujapandisha nauli katika ruti yoyote ndani ya Mombasa na Pwani kwa jumla. Nauli tabaki vile vile kama kitambo.
Kwa wale wenye ambaye wameongeza zaidi, kama ambaye nimesikia ruti ya Rongai wamefanya exaggerated. Unajua we need to go to specific routes. Tumeongea na chairman wao na nikawaelezea tumepandisha na kiwango gani na wa revisit that structure wao wasiumize common mwananchi.
Matatu stakeholders have indicated that they do not have a choice and their decision is final.
Once government ita decide kupunguza, mbona tuumize wananchi wa kawaida? Tutapunguza. The reason why sisi tumeamua kupandisha fare ni unaangalia zile vitu tunafaa kulipa sahi as matatu people.
Many Kenyans are urging President Uhuru Kenyatta to postpone the enactment of the 16% VAT on petroleum products.
Hali nilikuwa na bandia 30 pop. Asubuhi nilikuta nikichachiwa 50 pop. Ambaye kitu kinauma sana kwa sababu tunaenda na budget kulingana na vile mapato iko.
So far is not a good idea by the government, given that already the economics of Kenya are so bad, in the sense that the prices of commodities have gone high, and fuel being the driver of economy, it will definitely affect the common mwananchi.
The Kenya Independent Petroleum Distributors stopped loading of fuel at depots countrywide as they were on a go-slow linked to increase in fuel prices. They had a silent protest in Lunga Lunga area.
Hapa Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, hakuna lori hata hakuna lita moja ambayo inatoa mafuta leo.
And in Nakuru town, business came to a standstill as locals took to the streets, lamenting hiked fuel prices. The locals called on the government to rethink the move, which they said is a burden to common citizens.
The high price of fuel will affect manufacturing, and it will not be possible for young people here to get jobs in Nakuru County.
Na tutapumuzika mpaka siku ile tutasikia mafuta taa diesel imerudi chini.
They vowed to continue with the peaceful demonstrations until the government heeds their grievances in the transport sector. Passengers traveling from Nakuru to Nairobi will have to part with 500 shillings compared to the previous 300 shillings. Nur Abdulaziz, NTV.
Now, activist Okiya Mtate has filed a petition at the Milimani Low Court seeking to stop the 16% levy on petroleum products. The petition was filed this afternoon and a certificate of urgency seeking temporary orders to stay the implementation of the KRA levy.
The application I've had is to request the judge to suspend it. But ultimately, in my prayers, I'm praying that the particular provision of VAT, of the VAT Act, be declared unconstitutional for infringing very, very clear and specific provisions of the Constitution. So in a brief, that's basically what we have asked for. And of course, when you go to reasonableness, how reasonable is it to have a tax constituting about half the price of a product? How reasonable is it? We're also looking at the question of reasonableness. And you ask yourself, how reasonable is it to literally kill the goose that lays the golden eggs?
Now that was Okiya Omtata just saying the decision is unconstitutional, invalid and unfair. In his application, Omtata said the decision to impose the new levy has a negative impact on the members of the public and should be suspended pending determination of his case. He also says the state has violated the constitution by limiting rights to property and advancement of socio-economic rights, observing that Treasury CS Henry Rotich allowed the implementation of the new levy in total defiance of Parliament, which suspended the same. And Trevor, we understand that is not the only legal proceeding that we're seeing right now.
Absolutely not, Zaynab. Do you use a matatu, by the way?
I definitely do.
Yeah, once in a while I do too. And the rhyme has changed from Bao Tao to 40 Tao. It even loses the rhyme there. And that's exactly why the Central Organization of Trade Union, that is COTU, is suing the government there for what it terms as the rising cost of living following the 16% VAT rise on petroleum products. Speaking in Kabokiek village in Ainamoi constituency, COTU Secretary General Francis Atuoli says the case filed today seeks to reverse the implementation of the tax that has led to the rise in the cost of fuel across the entire country. COTU is further accusing Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich, the International Monetary Fund, that's IMF, and the World Bank of seeking to make lives of Kenyans even harder. Atuoli has listed the National Treasury, Kenya Revenue Authority, and the Energy Regulatory Commission as respondents. And this is why.
Hii nyongeza ya mafuta, inji hii uchumi hautakuwa, hakutakuwa na mtu yeyote ambaye atapata chakula, hakutakuwa na mtu yeyote ambaye atasafiri, hakutakuwa na mtu yeyote ambaye atapata dawa ya hospitali na nini, kwa ajili kila kitu ambacho kinafanyika katika inji hii kinategemea mambo ya mafuta. Na tunauliza rais, hata kama akiwa China anasikia mambo ya Wakenya wanasema, bunge ilisimama na wananchi na Rotich amekataa, na watu kadhaa na wale wa IMF and World Bank wanasema ni lazima Kenya, wananchi wa Kenya watozwe kodi kali ya 16% kwa mambo ya mafuta.
So Zaynab, this cuts across board, whether you're driving or javing, like the young guys like to call it, that's using a matatu. And also the governors are jumping into the fray, right?
Yeah, definitely. A group of governors has asked President Uhuru Kenyatta to assent to the Finance Bill 2018, pushing the implementation of the 16% VAT on petroleum products to September 1st, 2020 to cushion Kenyans against the harsh reality of the new taxes. The new fuel levy has caused public uproar, with the matatu operators saying they will increase fares.
And we think this will adversely affect our people. It will affect our people down to the grassroots. Our incomes are very low in the county. So we have had cries from our people pleading that we possibly plead with the national government and with His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta, that when he comes back, he reviews that tax is too high for our people, and it will affect our people very, very fundamentally in terms of their welfare. And we like that tax definitely to be reduced.
Bei ya mafuta ina affect karibu kila mtu. Itaongeza bei ya stima, itaongeza gharama ya matatu, itaongeza bei ya wakulima, hata wale ambao wanapiga mambo irrigation na pumps. Kwa hivyo ndio tunaomba kiongozi wa nchi Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta akirudi kutoka China angalie sana ili tusiharibu uchumi hasa wa wananchi wale wadogo wa Kenya.
This particular policy is going to be very restrictive even for economic growth generally. It's not just going to increase the cost of living, but what it will do, it will also hinder economic growth, meaning we will be stuck in this cycle of never improving and getting out of poverty. So they need to go back to the drawing board, look at their fiscal policy, look at the monetary policy the Treasury has, and then come up with another alternative. Because in economics, there's always an alternative.
They have adapted a system that is going to rob the poor and give to the rich, apparently, because this affects everybody who uses fuel in this country, and that practically means that the tax is going to find its way all the way to anything that is transport. Why don't we tighten the nuts on revenue collection and pin down the evasion that is largely there to those who are paying taxes. And it is possible to bridge that gap of the 70 billion only, rather than just going to look for Mamamboga, the borders, because that will be taken away from the poor and giving to the rich, which is not really going to end this vicious cycle of chasing our tail.
I guess then all eyes will be on President Uhuru Kenyatta as he jets back into the country, Trevor.
Pretty much, Zaynab. And he still has up to the 13th to ascend to the bill anyway. But for now, all Kenyans are like Serikali's idea.
I know.
Take a break.
Wait, if that doesn't happen, then this becomes law.
Absolutely. And we all pay the VAT, 16% VAT as usual. Taking a short break, and NTV Tonight will be back with the match.
Welcome back to the bulletin. Now, individuals with an appetite for public land are at it again. This time, Uhuru Secondary Schools in Eastlands, Nairobi, is their target.
Well, the faceless grabbers had the audacity to walk into the school on Saturday and erect posts demarcating the land that has been part and parcel of the learning institution since 1989, as Sharon Baranga found out.
Uhuru Secondary School, a learning institution for boys, is one of the oldest public schools in Eastlands, Nairobi. Owing to the year which it was officially opened, a number of people from this neighborhood have gone through the school. But now, there is a threat staring at the institution. There are people who are claiming ownership of land that is part of the school.
Tunapoona mambo kama haya yanafanywa na viongozi ambapo ni wa eneo hili na ni viongozi wanafaa kutetea shule aswa kwamba ni ya serikali iweze kuendelea, tunashangaa sana. So hatutaweza kuruhusu jambo lolote linafanya na mtu binafsi ambapo ni kiongozi.
In the school compound, posts dividing the land in two sections were erected on Saturday by a group of people saying they owned it. At first, the area member of County Assembly told the school the area under dispute is to be used under the Urban Renewal and Regeneration Project, but surprisingly, there is no structure here.
Me, I'm not a politician. Me, I'm a teacher, and let me stop at teaching. Like this issue of the land, I'm not supposed to be the one who is looking for this land for the school. It is the area leadership that will be fighting for this school to have land, not me. But you see, now they are putting me in a very awkward situation that instead of me teaching, I'm now looking for land.
The National Lands Commission had penned a letter to the county government of Nairobi informing them that the land in question belonged to the school. Uhuru Secondary School has about 400 students. As is the case with many such land-grabbing attempts, politicians are involved and the local administration appears to be hearing no evil and seeing no evil. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
Well, let's cross over to Eldoret, where a family in Kamkunji Estate in the town is searching for their 2-year-old baby who disappeared in unclear circumstances last Saturday while heading to church.
NTV reporter Gabriel Kudaka visited the family and brings you the details.
A mother's pain at losing a loved one. Last Saturday, Lynette Bwari prepared her 2 sons, Gibson Mabera and Desmond Moriasi, for a church service at Kurasini, Seventh-day Adventist Church in Kamukunji, unaware of what lay ahead. As usual, the 2 boys left ahead of their parents. But along the way, they were separated when an unknown woman tricked one of the boys, a 7-year-old, to pick a phone battery at a nearby shop. She told the boy to leave the 2-year-old brother in her care. When the boy returned, the lady had vanished with his younger brother.
Mama akamwambia kwamba enda uninunulie kitu huko chini kwa maduka. Mama naye akageuka akaanza safari na mtoto.
And since then, the boy has been missing. The family, with the help of the locals, have now launched a search for the missing boy, combing through the nearby estates and even in maize plantations.
Paka saa hii nimejaribu kutafuta huku na huku, sijafanikiwa kupata mtoto yangu.
The 7-year-old boy is still unable to comprehend what transpired.
Nikapatana mama amesimama hapa ananongoja ati niende beti kwa duka. Nikaenda wakasema kwanza ni jina yake na risiti. Mimi nikirudi mbio awayuka hapa na mtoto.
Eldoret West OCPD Zakaria Bitok confirmed the incident, saying they are treating it as a possible kidnap. Meanwhile, the family keeps on waiting, hoping that the child will be found. Gabriel Kudaka, NTV.
We hope the child will be found. So in a fast-paced world, the choice of career is very important and much thought must be put into it. When skill is put together with talent, then one can achieve much. But for 21-year-old Patience Dosita, born in Congo, grew up in Rwanda and now living in Kenya, her life has not been easy.
With one hand, she took all her chances and is now a professional photographer. On this weekend's segment of My Job, NTV's Mel Miendo brings us the inspirational story of the one-hand photographer.
Patience Dosita is no ordinary girl. She bears the marks of life's cruelty, yet she exemplifies beauty and resilience. In the heart of the Congo War, she lost both her parents and a limb. She was left in the care of a well-wisher.
So mama naye akuwa na pesa za kunipeleka hosi nipone. Na vile naenda nikiwa mkubwa ndio watoto wake wananifanyisha kazi kama hayuko, kama ako ananigusa. Basi sasa kama enda kidogo nafanya kazi, after hapo nigonjeka cancer, so ndio walikata sasa hafikisha hapa nimefika.
When they moved to Rwanda, things took a turn for the worst.
Rwanda nilikuwa orphanage, nilikuwa naishi kwa adopted family, nilikuwa mena adopt. Sasa watoto wako wananipenda sana, kwa naona I don't like her. Even she have one hand.
But she's salvaged beauty from the ashes and from the cruelty. She now captures life's beauty with just one hand.
Hiyo mkono nafaa kwenda hapa kidogo. Yeah.
Perfect. As a professional photographer, she approaches her work with zeal and determination.
Vile nilipata hii family the capture ni kama familia yangu, boss wangu mimi namuona kama baba yangu. So naona hii ni familia yangu. So vile niliingia walinipenda na mimi tunapendana. So kazi tunaendelea kidogo kidogo. So nikifika na furahi. Kuna client amekuja namkaribisha.
Every morning she starts her day with a prayer. She prays about everything, her job, her colleagues and even her clients. But her journey to professional photography, she says, has not been easy.
When Patience came to decapture, she had never touched a single camera. She was very shy, very reserved, volatile. She would explode anytime. I saw a person who's really to herself.
Living as an orphan, Patience sought to better her life through education.
The lecturer shule alikuwa anajua maisha yangu yote, alikuwa anajua mimi ni adopted. So akaniambia kuja usome, umalize, fanya national exam, but sasa sitakupea diploma. Ukifika nje kama umeweza exam, utaenda fanya kazi uone pesa ukujulipe.
But even then, she couldn't afford her school fee.
Ndio nilianza kuomba usaidizi, kuona kwa internet, nikapata IRC iko, nikaanza kuchati nao, nikaambia shida zangu zote, wakaniambia to meet Garana ya center. Nikaenda nikamwambia everything about my story. So ndio waliniambia okay, unaenda training, after training tutakupeleka shule usome. So nilifanya training ya 1 week, kwa hiyo IRC ndo wakanichuzia kukuja kusoma DeCapture.
And once in DeCapture studios, she discovered her talent.
Simply taking a photo, anybody can do that. We have technology today. We have phones that can take photos. But then when you're having the passion, now you take that skill to the next level. And patience has been able to master that art.
Kuna vitu zingine walemavu naogopa kufanya. Unasema, guy, mimi si beautiful. Kitu kingine niko na mkono moja. Kitu kingine maybe nimenona. Asiwezi nikakuwa model. But na mimi kitambo ni hivyo nilikuwa nasema. But kuna kitu nimefunguka akili, nilikuwa na boss wangu. Ananiambia Patience, unaweza try, nakuona tu hivi uko. Unaweza kuwa model. Try.
Patience says she's just starting out and is into the bright future ahead.
Kama una mkono moja, unaenda kwa barabara uoneshe mkono wako, nisaidie. But hii yenye unasema ikusaidie, inaomba inaweza fanya kazi. Unatumia mkono moja. Even hata kama una mikono, utatumia miguu.
In a world where there are not much opportunities, youth have been urged to embrace vocational training. Depending on the client and the workload, per photo shoot, a photographer can make between 15,000 and 50,000 Kenya shillings, which is very different from the past.
Photography now has shifted from the photography that was being done at home with a motorbike guy to a position where now we are sourcing our market from abroad. Photography has become like music. Music can be consumed by anyone in the world.
Photography is a skill, an art, and a talent that many people have. And when you come into a studio, you expect that the person who is taking your photo may not have a disability. This is the story of Patience Dosita, and she has beaten the odds.
Melmiendo, NTV.
Absolutely awesome stuff. In fact, my director Jackson and Mike Wenaina say that this is a challenge to themselves as the owners of MG100 Photography. I hope you're listening, Mike. What do you think?
Fantastic. Yeah. It is quite an inspiration.
And from the words of Patience, try. Usiseme guy, mimi siwezi.
There's always that opportunity. Let's take a very short break. We'll be back with business news. All right, welcome back. Let's now take a look at all stories making headlines in the world of business. And the Kenya Union of Savings and Credit Cooperatives, KUSCO, has opposed a move by the SACCO Society's regulatory authority to increase the annual amount of money SACCOs pay to the regulating body. SASRA is implementing an increase in the levy, which KUSCO says has been done without consultation and will hurt the cooperative movement. Alex Mwangi reports.
The SACCO Society's regulatory authority, SASRA, receives 60% of its funding from levies to SACCOs and the remaining 40% from the exchequer. Up till now, the levy has been 0.1% of deposits held for the last audited accounts of the SACCO and invoiced annually, translating into tens of millions of shillings. In February this year, SASRA gazetted new rates that progressively increase up to 0.175%.
It will obviously erode the savings, and also it will be a disincentive to members to save more, because the more you save, the more is paid in terms of levy.
There are proposed amendments to laws that KUSCO says will adversely affect the SACCO sector. Among them, the statute law and the finance bill have proposed the introduction of special impact members, or SIMs, who will be exempted from periodic payments made by other members. The benefits accruing from their investments will only be shared among the SIMs rather than the entire membership of the cooperative. KUSCO says this will distort the cooperative movement's governance structure and create a second center of power beyond reproach within SACCOs.
We don't know who introduced this bill in Parliament. The question we need to ask is, why was it brought into legislation?
I think the opportunities are being seen by players outside the cooperative movement. What we have done is that we are going to actually put a team in place to ensure that they scroll all the legislations, the bills that are being proposed. We are also going to enforce the procedures in government, because there is a procedure that is supposed to be followed before that kind of a bill goes forward.
KUSCO further argues that this category of members may facilitate corruption by suppressing transparency.
But Duale also told us he is going to withdraw it.
Given that our ministry was not really involved in those amendments, and having listened to the sector, we are of the view that it is important to recall them, because we need to review the laws within a new policy framework.
Alex Mwangi, NTV.
Now, the balance of trade between Africa and China is heavily skewed towards the Asian nation, with China exporting goods worth $170 billion against Africa's $20 billion worth of exports. Kenya and other hand exported just a little over 10 billion shillings worth of goods to China versus the 390 billion shillings that China exported. Can this trade imbalance be fixed? That is what 33 African heads of state are in China to figure out, and Leila Mohammed reports from Beijing.
Africa gathered in Beijing for the 6th FOCAC summit with high expectations of cashing in on the trade and development deals on the table. President Xi Jinping has promised more funding under the Belt and Road Initiative that seeks to tap into infrastructure, manufacturing and transport sectors on the continent.
As Africa, we have awakened to the great potential that lies within our continent for inclusive growth and meaningful development.
This afternoon, China has promised another $60 billion for development and funding for Africa.
This responsibility does not concern one side only, but all of us equally.
Kenya, who is seeking to continue with past projects and secure funding for the Jubilee government's Big Four agenda, is represented by President Uhuru Kenyatta, who will be having bilateral talks with the host presidents on the sideline of the conference.
We can review Johannesburg and we can reflect together in the next 3 years in a 3-year plan of action, 2019-2021, in terms of the projects that bring meaning, that give traction to Africa's 2063 agenda.
But while trade ties will be on the table, the imbalance of these ties is a gap that the private sector is keen to narrow.
Logistic barriers, what barriers exist? Are there non-tariff barriers? Are there tariff barriers? And so exploring those ones and being able to deal with them, I think that's what is important.
While more talk will be on Afro-China financial development, very little or nothing will be on the rising cost of the deals and the payback plans. Kenya hopes to secure funding for the Naivasha-Kisumu phase of the standard gauge railway, while hoping to attract funding for the Lamu port, among other infrastructure projects that are in line with the Big Four development agenda, which favors manufacturing, housing, among other projects. China hopes to finance projects covering the areas of industrialization, agricultural modernization, infrastructure, financial services, green development, trade and investment facilitation, poverty reduction, and public welfare, public health, people-to-people exchanges, and peace and security.
As things stand, Africa is taking out $170 billion into China and bringing in only $10 billion. And this, African nations are now being told to take their place financially in this correlation between Africa and China, insisting that they also should benefit from this relationship. Leila Mohammed, NTV, Beijing, China.
And China has offered about 6 trillion shillings in financial support to African countries over the next 3 years and promised to write off debt to poorer African nations in the latest charm offensive that is making African nations increasingly look towards the East. Victor Kiprop reports.
No strings attached. That's the message of Chinese President Xi Jinping to more than 40 African presidents and government representatives at the start of a 2-day China-Africa summit in Beijing. In his opening address to the ongoing summit, President Jinping pledged an extra 6 trillion shillings for the continent's development, the same amount the East Asian country pledged at the previous summit in South Africa some 3 years ago, but this time insisted that the funding in form of loans would come with no political obligations. Meanwhile, government debt from China's interest-free loans due to the end of 2018 will be written off for poor and indebted African countries, as well as for developing nations in the continent's interior and small island nations. The influx of Chinese investment in Africa, mainly through loans for infrastructural development in recent years, has raised concerns, with critics labeling it as a debt trap diplomacy, citing the case of Sri Lanka, which was forced to hand over its strategic port of Abantota to China after failing to repay the amounts it borrowed to build the 130 billion shillings facility. According to the China-Africa Research Initiative, the Chinese government, banks and contractors extended at least 136 trillion shillings in loans to African countries and their state-owned enterprises between 2000 and 2017. Victor Kiprop, NTV Business.
Nairobi Securities Exchange listed firm Longhorn Publishers has recorded a 37% increase in net profit for the financial year ended June to 183 million shillings, an improvement largely attributed to increased sales and improved operational efficiencies. Revenues for the period stood at 1.69 billion shillings, 17% higher than the 1.45 billion recorded over the same period last year. Newly appointed Managing Director Maxwell Ohome says the company will embark on its new strategic plan that runs up to the 2021, aimed at growing digital products and expanding into new territories within Southern Africa as well as Francophone territories.
The future of this business is digital. There will be disruptions from everywhere, but digital remains a significant area of growth. And now, in the future, in the coming days, you will see a lot of content being developed in the digital side and a lot of drive in the digital segment. It's an area we believe that in the next 3 years, we'll be talking of exponential growth.
All right, that's all we had lined up for you in our business segment this evening, but let's take a look at the financials.
NTV Financial Report in association with the University of Nairobi. Join the renowned University of Nairobi School of Business for market-driven and
Welcome back. The National Land Commission has for the third time revoked the controversial land title deed of Airgate Mall, formerly Taj Mall, on claims that the mall sits on government land that was reserved for the expansion of the Outer Ring Road.
Now, the Commission has also refuted claims of holding back the revocation of the title deed belonging to Airgate Centre.
Taj Mall once again faces demolition. This time, the National Land Commission, through its acting chairperson, Abigail Mbagaya, has come out to give the Commission's position on the controversial land.
When we did a review of grants of that title, we found that it was an amalgamation of two titles, namely LR number 7075/13/1. That /13/1 is part of the road. It's part of the road reserve, and it was acquired by national government via Gazette Notice number 1105 of 30th April 1971.
This even as the owner of Airgate Mall, Ramesh Chandra Gorasia, argues that he genuinely bought the 1.7 acres in 1991 and another 2 acres in 1995, both from Abuja Limited, then joined the two parcels, claiming that the land cartels are the Ardhi House are to blame for the confusion.
I'm telling openly to any authority, I'm not going to remove these structures, even they are saying 15th August, not even to my death. I'm not going to remove it myself.
The Commission, through a press release, claims to have received a complaint dated 14th of June 2013 from the Kenya Urban Roads Authority requesting to review grants for the parcel located along Outer Ring roads to determine the legality or propriety. The Commission went ahead to disassociate itself with claims of allowing the mall to operate.
Some media going around saying that the National Land Commission approved for Taj Mall to remain where it is. And this is contrary to what the National Land Commission did. The National Land Commission, on the 22nd of January 2016, via Gazette Notice number Roman 118, number 6, page 120, we asked that that title of Taj Mall be revoked.
Having revoked the title deed, the Commission has now given Kenya Urban Roads Authority the mandate to reclaim the land.
And it's up to the road authorities to come and demolish it. Our part is not
to go and demolish. We don't have tractors, we don't have bulldozers to pull down buildings.
Doreen Majala, NTV.
All right, let's take a very short break here on NTV Tonight. When we come back, sports news.